I live on Yoghurt, which is a houseboat moored on the Thames. It's a 50-foot-long steel sailing catamaran, which was converted from a boat built by Danish architecture students in the early 1980s. As a vessel, it's utterly unique. There are no 6-masted sailing catamarans in the world at the moment. And in fact, it's now a 4-masted sailing catamaran because, having been converted into home, it has 2 masts chopped off at the back. At the stern, I'm so sorry. The best thing is in the summer when you can open the windows, slide back the doors, and let air and light in. You get completely transfixed by the glittering of the water. The other agreeable part of it is that it's very close to the water. A lot of boats, especially houseboats, are high up from the water. So you get a real sense of being close to the water. It's like staring into a fire and looking into the embers of the fire. It's exactly the same sort of experience. The thing I particularly like about Yoghurt is a sense of serenity on the one hand and yet of chaos on the other. At the moment there's a boat which has just gone by and it's caused a lot of wash. And this is the sort of problem we have when things fall off. When a boat goes by at high tide, particularly in the spring tides, you really feel it. Yoghurt doesn't really suit me, I suppose. I suit Yoghurt by now because we're part of each other. That's to say, I've often enough scuffed my elbows on her, so I imagine there's bits of me all over the place. It's very difficult to get on the boat. The Thames has got a 7-metre rise and fall. So we've had to construct over the years adaptable ladders. And the ladder looks like a Heath Robinson construction because it is a Heath Robinson construction. It has a sliding platform on the boat and you can see the water down between the rungs and things like that. So it is a frightening approach to the boat. The kitchen's the worst part of the boat. It's actually not a kitchen, it's a galley. I have to get that straight. And that's probably why it's such a bad feature, because you feel that you're chained to it. It's filthy, it's small, it's cramped. There's not enough cooking rings or anything like that. But it's still possible to feed a dozen people out of it. So it works. The shower's absolutely freezing. In fact, using the shower in winter is not something that makes you happy at all. You do have to be pretty foolish to use it. The bedrooms are the main hulls of the boat. They have an internal diameter of about 5'6", 5'7". So I just brush my head on the ceiling and I've learned to walk with a bit of a stoop when I'm down there. But I'm used to it. We call them the tubes, and I say I'm going down to my tube now. At the end of them, at the bows, they have a double bed which has got a window above it for ventilation. I don't really spend that much time down there. It's just for sleeping in, really. This is a pot-bellied stove. It's a very efficient way of heating boats in the winter. And since I often have lots of small bits of wood lying around, it's very easy to use that as a means of heating the place. And it's ecologically right as well. The advantages of living here are specifically the sense of light and space, and of being surrounded by like-minded lunatic people who all have boats, who are moored nearby. So it's like living in a village, and it's right in the middle of London. I mean, we're 10 minutes on a bicycle away from Harrods, and if you think that something 10 minutes away from Harrods is probably worth £1.5 million, admittedly not this size, and not with this sort of level of instability, and it doesn't sink, I mean, but it's a completely magical space. You actually feel that you're permanently 12 years old. It's such a pleasure being here. There's this wonderful sense of sky. I can lie in my bed at night and look out through the hatches and see the stars. I don't know how I would adapt to living off this boat yet. I do, I have been in houses and things, but they do make me feel claustrophobic. So I don't know how I would be able to move off. But I no doubt will have to one day.
I live here in this community called Tinker's Bubble in Somerset. There's 9 adults and 3 children. It's a very woody community, lots of forest and orchards. And I live here with my 5-year-old son, Joe. This is our house. It's a straw bale house, in as much as it has straw bale walls, about 3 high. Wonderful insulation. Very, no cold or wind can get in through them. Damp doesn't get in. Sound doesn't get in. It would all be very good if it wasn't for the fact that on top then there's a thin canvas roof that lets in cold and sound and everything. Being in the pines, there's constantly pine needles falling down on top of the canvas, and you have to keep the canvas taut because any dips, the pine needles catch, water stays there, the canvas rots, and you have water coming in. And I have one situation where I think I've just managed to avoid that by realising that I had a puddle in the roof and bringing it down again. They can be very dark, these places, and it's already quite dark up here living in the pines, so I put in lots of windows. I like lots of light. Sometimes I feel a bit looked in upon, I suppose, but I'm not going to have loads of net curtains and things. I don't think I'll go for the net curtains. We all eat together and cook together. Cooking is done round a central fire. We pool the money for the food and the shopping is done communally. We take it in turns and somebody will cook, and whilst they cook they also do the cleaning and chopping the wood and whatnot. We are now building a new kitchen. Much pressure needed to say, yes, we need a kitchen. Come on blokes, it isn't good enough. Women are saying we want a kitchen. There's a lot of discussion going on at the moment about whether the washing up area should be inside the kitchen or outside the kitchen, because the diehards are saying, no, I like washing up outside, even in the middle of winter, you keep your hands warm, it's great. Where I used to be living in a little cottage, when I left there, I had some goals that I wanted, and one of them was that I wanted a house with a really lovely, big, luxurious bathroom and loads of hot water constantly on the go. And now I find myself here in this place with a very drafty bathroom, and it's not exactly luxurious, but it's much prettier and satisfying in a way somehow, lying there, and it's a beautiful building inside. When I moved in first, I'd been living for 3 months in the communal roundhouse. Whilst I built my house and whatnot. And so I was really suffering for a lack of personal space. So when I first moved into my house, I went in there and shut that door and went, yes, it's my little house. That was just, I'll never forget that feeling. That was just absolutely wonderful. My house is heated by a large wood-burning stove. One of the advantages of it is that there's a big flue that comes across, and so when I've got loads of wet washing to dry, I can put all the socks and the knickers and everything all on top, and then they sizzle, and I have to sort of move along, turning them frequently. I've set light to a couple of things of Joe's, but on the whole, not too many casualties on the clothing front. I like the way that the bales produce quite a goldeny sort of colour, and quite a nice smell. I have a large futon mattress, which I roll up every day, and Joe, I try and get him to sleep in his own bed, but he tends to like to crawl in the wee smalls, and then I try and get back to sleep. I think the main reason that I like living here is that it's a farming community. That's how I see it. We are aiming at being self-supporting and sustainable, and we're trying to be self-sufficient. There are nearly 40 acres, and about 26 of those acres are Douglas fir, and then we have about 10 acres of orchard and about 4 acres of gardens. The apples and the timber are income producing. Most of our milk at the moment comes from the milkman, I'm afraid, but we have one goat, and she has a kid, and Neddy the goat produces about 3 pints of milk a day. Some people don't like it, I think that's some of the trouble. Or some people don't think it's very hygienic or things like that. But getting milk from the milkman isn't very sustainable, so I go with the goat myself. Ideally, we won't have to go shopping for anything. We're going to be able to provide all our food and a lot of our requirements on the land. I didn't realise when I came here how important that was to me to be trying to achieve that. But I think as soon as I came here, something twigged. that this was a good move.
We bought the lighthouse in 1987. We just bought it because we loved it and we wanted to restore it. We've got 7 double rooms, so that they are quite large, and 3 singles. The rooms...
These are the bedrooms?
They're the bedrooms.
Right. Because in total there's 18 rooms, isn't there? Something
Yes,
like that.
and then we've got kitchen and we've got dining room and lounge. And so in total we've got 18 rooms.
But in the rooms themselves, they've got nice curvatures, like the entrance hall. You've got this nice big curvature.
Because it's built like a wedding cake and there's a spiral staircase in between, all the rooms then are wedge-shaped. The boys love the spiral staircase, but we do make sure that when they were small, we used to go down first and then they'd follow us in case they tripped, but they just love going up and down the stairs. All our bedrooms have been sort of individually designed to reflect, sort of homely atmosphere.
The whole lighthouse itself is a very powerful circular structure. Mind you do sometimes feel as if you go around in circles. You get a bit dizzy, don't you?
Yeah.
Sometimes, but living around, you're living in a circle. We are strongly associated with water, but the flotation tank is a marvellous tool for deep relaxation, but also for problem solving. The expression think tank comes from these flotation tanks. You're simulating the Dead Sea. So someone says this is where the River Usk meets the Dead Sea. The previous record was held by an American doctor who had floated for 18 hours. So we decided that I should float for 24 hours. So I went for the world record and I managed to get it. No one's attempted to beat that record, so I still hold the world record for the longest float. Most lighthouses only have one entrance for security reasons because they were the wreckers. And some of the doors, lighthouse doors, were made of pure steel so that people couldn't get in and wreck them. Obviously, if a ship relies on that light, and if you knock the light out, you can draw them and put a light in a different position. You can bring those ships onto the rocks. So that's why most lighthouses don't have one entrance, so they can protect just the one entrance.
Gosh, I didn't know that.
I'm becoming quite an authority on lighthouses.
I know, because when we bought it, we didn't know anything about lighthouses. We just didn't think much. We just
no, but as the years go on, you
thought
get
it would
really
be
interested
a very unusual property to have.
And some of the old photographs we've discovered. This is one of 1870. It was an amazing photograph because it sort of brought the whole thing to life. Our pride and joy, really, at the moment is the lamp room, which we've reinstated, and that's a fabulous room at the top. And we've based the whole thing on the original lamp room, but that's really set the whole structure off. But we love going up there. The kids like going up there into the lamp room. Guests love it.
Now the shipping forecast issued by the Met Office. There are warnings of gales in all areas except Lundy, Fastnet, Irish Sea.
And in the lower section of the lamp room, we've now got a little bar. So we pop up there and have a drink with the guests or by ourselves.
The lighthouse is situated on crossing ley lines, which are lines of energy. There's a whole grid of it round the Earth, and we just happen to be on crossing ley lines. We've had a lot of people here, they're called dowsers, and they've used their dowsing rods. You just hold them, and if they cross, there's some sort of energy. They say, oh, you're on crossing leys.
People do say that it's not a good thing to actually live on crossing leys because people do energise them, but you just don't have too much control on them. To live in a lighthouse in a round structure on crossing leys, you have to be very careful with that energy.
I do cleanse it myself. You can do it yourself through prayers, through meditation and so on. You can cleanse the leys.
It's nice to live here. I love the water and the wind and the seasons.
You appreciate when it rains and when the sun comes out, and it's really lovely. And then the sunsets, we have some really beautiful.
If you get the moon on the water, you know, and the tides, and obviously the moon on the water is lovely up in the lamp room.
And the stars. I mean,
and the stars.
You do appreciate nature.
So it's atmospheric. It's almost mystical, isn't it?
It is very.
The English Lake District, one of the most beautiful places on Earth. Because of its outstanding natural beauty, in 1948 the Lake District was designated a national park to conserve this unique landscape for all to enjoy. But behind the picturesque scenery is a far more complex picture than at first meets the eye. The Lake District attracts millions of tourists each year, and this has a huge impact on both the environment and the local people.
45 minutes around the islands or 70 minutes Ambleside and return. Both these boats are ready for leaving now. The next boat for Lakeside is at 12:45.
English national parks have two primary statutory responsibilities. One is to protect and enhance the natural beauty, the cultural heritage and the wildlife of the area. And the second primary purpose is to encourage people to enjoy the special qualities of that area. We believe the tourist industry should recognise the paramountness of the landscape and that their commercial activities should be subservient to that major consideration. Here we are in the heart of England's finest landscape, the Lake District National Park. The least thing we expect to find is traffic, and more traffic. Congestion, all because a lot of people want to access the national park. Some because they are here to enjoy the superb fells and dales and landscape of the national park, but others because our planning system has allowed developments to take place which bring people in for the wrong reasons. Conference centres, garden centres, and above all here in Ambleside, a glut of shopping facilities.
Our objective is to ensure that the National Park benefits from the economic opportunities that are provided by tourism. Now, that may sound as though it could be in conflict with preservation and enhancement of the national park itself, of the landscape and the environment. But the reality is that tourism of all industries is well placed to actually look after the environment because we make our living out of it. So there's no way we are going to destroy or damage it.
Ambleside, being in the heart of the lakes and in the heart of the mountains country, has focused much of its retail activity on the great outdoors. So we've got a high number of shops that provide equipment and clothing that will enable you to go out properly equipped to make the best of the mountains.
We've got Gainers, we've got Rowan, we've got Lakeland, we have Nicholson's, KD Sports and other shops immediately around us. It's no wonder that Ambleside now has the title of the anorak capital of England. And the consequence is that people are coming to Ambleside because it's a shopping centre, not because it's part of the national park.
Research does show that one of the favourite pastimes of people on holiday, in fact the favourite pastime, is shopping. And it's shopping in the sort of shop that is unique and is different, and it's something that you don't experience at home. So I do believe that it's perfectly legitimate for Ambleside to set itself up as the place in England you would want to come to if you wanted to replace your outdoor clothing.
If more commercialisation continues to happen in Ambleside, the pressures on this town will increase. It is overdevelopment of commercial interest in Ambleside, which has led to lots of the problems. We think the solution is to sensibly plan what future developments happen in Ambleside and to pay a little bit more consideration as to how we approach these wonderful landscape areas.
We strive all the time to maintain a balance between the environment and the number of visitors that are here at any one time. The more visitors, the greater the impact is likely to be on the environment. But we seek to preserve what it is that people come here to see. Otherwise, we would be destroying the basis of our livelihood, the basis of our local economy. And the sorts of things that we can do to do that, we have far better means of preserving footpaths and of creating footpaths that can withstand visitor numbers today than we had 20 or 30 years ago.
Behind us we've got a very busy car park at Swirls, which is one of 5 main footpaths onto Helvell, and now in a winter week you might only have 150, 160 people through that gate, but in the summer months that can increase to 3,000, 3,500 people. A lot of people going up one footpath, consequently a lot of erosion. Just here now, these drains are a good example of what happens from an erosion point of view of the feet of people walking down. They won't stick to the path which goes round the back of the crags. They want to take the shortest route down. They come down the crags along with the water and bring all the loose material down, which covers the grass, and it also blocks up these big drains.
I think it's very tempting to take a little shortcut. For example, further down there's some quite big boulders there. It's very tempting when you see a sort of smooth area to the side of it to walk over that bit rather than climbing up steeper stones and climbing over those.
I think it's if there's hills there, then they're to be walked on really, and it's a shame not to be able to get up to see them.
What we've got here is a working holiday group, people who pay to come up here for a week's holiday, and they come out in the fell and work on the path. Sure, yeah. But it's dangerous work. Obviously, it's steep terrain. You're moving big stones with crowbars, moving them into place, and you've got a steep drop below you. So we have to be aware of people coming up the path below as well. But it's hard work, it's not easy work. And these people, in some cases, have never done this before. They want a good, stable, well-pitched, quality path that will stay in situ for anything up to 50, 60 years or even longer.
English national parks are very different from those in the rest of the world because they are not owned by the state. They're owned by a multitude of bodies. They're living, they're working landscapes. And national park authorities who manage the national parks have to take account of the needs of the local people. In some Lake District areas, 40% of the housing stock is owned by people who are not permanently resident there.
I've come to ask some advice about buying a house.
Yeah, come on in. Because people are buying up houses for second homes, the young people who were born in the village are unable to buy the type of homes that they would normally have done to start up life. What can I do to help you?
I don't know if you know this situation about that property I tried to buy just down the road. By the time I can sort of get the package together,